Hey everyone, and welcome to my first Kings of War Let's Paint. Today I'm working on a Basilean Abbess. I picked this up through the Kings of War Vanguard Frontier that Mantic ran on my miniature factory a little while back. I've been into Firefight, Dead Zone, Halo, and this opportunity came up. Kings of War Vanguard appealed to me. Not sure I'm in for a rank and flank game, but time may tell. I've really enjoyed this process so far. So this model is 3D printed. I printed it in Anycubic ABS-like resin on a Mono X2 printer, along with most of the force that I've painted up for Vanguard so far. I started with the Basileans because I like them in general. And then I kind of got drawn into the sisterhood. I ordered some additional sisters to make some different sword swingy sisters, but I decided with this faction. I also discovered the band Dogma not that long ago, and the crazy metal nun thing kind of stuck in my head, and I thought, what if I painted Basilean sisters up in a more traditional nun-like paint scheme and just listened to a lot of metal while I was doing it. So here we are. So to start off, this model is primed black with a white zenithal, and then I am applying Army Painter Speed Paint Grimm Black to the robes of the miniature as our initial base coat. I'm going to use quite a bit of speed paint on the initial basing on this, and then we'll switch over to more traditional acrylics. With our Grimm Black in place, we're going to switch over to Army Painter Speed Paint Occultist Cloak. And we're going to use this to base out all of the armor pieces. This is kind of a nice, deep, dark, bluish gray, but it'll work really nice as a base to highlight up some metallics onto it afterwards. Next up, after everything is dried up, we're going to switch over to Pro Acryl Dark Ivory. As I've stated in previous videos, you don't have to use Pro Acryl paints. That's just my preferred brand. Any decent darker ivory color will work fine. We're going to use this to base out all of the garments under her armor that are showing through. So in the joints of the sleeves, along the thighs, those places. From here, we're going to switch over to Pro Acryl Orange Brown. We're going to want to work with a little thinner paint and a finer point on the brush. And we're going to use this to trace out all of the trim across her incredibly ornate plate that covers pretty much her entire body, as well as some of the details on her warhammer and on her flail that she is carrying, as well as some of the back pieces. She's got a lot of gold on her. I'm not doing a non-metallic metallic, but by using this non-metallic color, it'll allow us to do our highlights with the metallic, and as opposed to the entire model looking like some glossy disco ball, we'll be able to get a little more punch out of that metallic effect from just having it in appropriate areas where we're using it for the light catching this metallic object. Now we're going to switch over to handling her skin tone. Now, unlike the Dogma band that inspired this paint scheme, she is not showing a lot of skin. It's basically just her face. So for our base coat on this, and these are all Pro Acryl paints, we're going to start with beige red. Then we'll use a 1-to-1 mix of beige red and olive flesh for our initial highlight, and then straight olive flesh for our final highlight. She's not showing a lot of skin, but the skin she is showing is difficult to get to. So again, we'll want to thin our paints, work with a fine point on our brush, deep breaths, lots of steady hands, make sure you're bracing, 3 points of contact, all of the fun, stereotypical painter things, and just take your time. Worst case scenario, if you go out of lines inside the cloak, you can clean up with a little black, and the armor will be able to clean up when we do our metallic highlights. Well, for whatever reason, my camera decided that it hated this project at this point. So we're going to have a little bit of blur here. I'm going to try to talk us through what's going on, but I'll keep it as short as I can. I painted the leather straps on the Abbess using Acryl Drab brown. Just a quick little base coat over them, nothing flashy. You can mix in a little bit of your olive flesh off the palette into the drab brown afterwards to do some scratching and weathering. The next part of this, though, that is still blurry and frustrating is where I apply the base coat of the dark silver. So we're applying the dark silver to the armor that we earlier painted Occultist Cloak, and we're going to do this just like we would an initial highlight, but we're going to stipple it on in those areas to try to provide a little texture. We want to treat this like it's a suit of armor. This Abbess has been going into battle. She's leading Sisterhood. So you want it to be dinged, dented, a little more distressed than normal. So you're going to just stipple that on, and then once that's done, the video clears up here when we go in to do the silver highlight so that you can see it. Here we go. Now that we're back into focus. So you can see here that I'm stippling the silver from Acryl as my final highlight on the armor plates. This is the exact same process I did with the dark silver, just previously only over the larger areas. Not much to say here. Treat this just like your final highlight and your hard edge highlight. The stippling helps to add a little texture and effect to it. If you were so inclined to go for bright shiny plate, then you could just not do the stippling process and apply a smooth coat. Now we're going to move back to all of that trim we based out earlier with the orange brown. We're going to take Acryl's rich gold, then down, and with a fine point brush, we're going to apply our initial highlight to get our golden sheen off of these trims and weapon embellishments and eagles on the shoulders, all the fun little doodads that we've based out for gold on her. Our rich gold in place. Now we're going to go with bright gold as our second highlight, just in a smaller, more intense and edged area to make sure that we're really bringing out that golden sheen on the armor. Careful and slow, pointy brush, thin paint, small areas. You don't want to overdo this because it can really wash out the previous golds that you put down. Now it may seem weird, but now I'm switching back to dark warm gray by Acryl, and I'm going to use this as our initial highlight on her cloak. The areas that the Grimm black covered that were really highlighted with the zenithal have a very pale, soft grayish look to them. We're going to use this to cover that. It's still going to be lighter than the black surrounding it, but it's really going to bring that down because we want to sell the robe as black and not just speed painted. So you're going to apply the dark warm gray as your initial highlight over the cloak area, just to bring it into tone. With the first cloak highlight in place, we're going to switch over to warm gray as our second level highlight. Same process as before, just work in a smaller area, mostly towards your edges, just to pronounce that and to kind of bring everything together. You might notice that I'm working in kind of a slashy, stipply method. You can do this in an effort to bring a little texture into the fabric if you'd like. You do this a lot on leathers and sometimes on the armor. Obviously, we did it with the stippling on the plate mail. It's just a way to kind of bring a little more character and texture into the model if you'd like. Now we're going to apply a Army Painter Fanatics range light tone wash in this case. Light tone is really nice for the golds. It doesn't shift the color too much. It's kind of rich and just kind of fills in those details to give them a little more emphasis. I apply this to the gold pieces as well as the ivory undersuit that she's wearing, just to kind of bring out its details a little bit, as well as her flesh. This lady's nearly done and she's getting ready to hit the field, so let's give her a decent base. So I'm going to use Army Painter Dusk Red to speed paint the earth under her feet. These bases are Mantic bases. They were part of the Frontier, and they are proper scale and size, and have some nice detail on them. For the greenery on the base, we're going to use speed paint Forest Sprite, and for the stones, Runic Gray. I don't do much over the speed paints for the bases. They fill in all the textures very nicely. They give some nice vivid color and they look really nice. So it's a very quick and easy step. And with this, we're coming to the end of my first Kings of War paint tutorial. I'm going to use coal black to do 3 sides of the base. Because Vanguard has a rear flank rule, I am doing the back of the base using burnt red. This is because some of my models aren't positioned perfectly straight on the base, just to kind of get them to fit better or to sit better with the terrain features. So with that, if you've stayed this whole time and watched all of it, I really appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed, I would really appreciate that. I also appreciate likes and shares. I'd like to try to get this out to the masses if you find it helpful, useful, or at all entertaining. And thank you for watching. Here we go with the final reveal.